What's up, witches? After like 4 years, I finally got around to making another big ol' episode ranking. And this one has a script this time. I won't bore you with an overly long intro. You read the title, you saw the thumbnail, you know exactly what we're doing here, and this video is gonna be long enough as it is, so let's just jump right into it. Welcome to every Owl House episode ranked. Spoilers, obviously. Number 43, Sense and Insensitivity. So I feel like the elephant in the room when it comes to ranking these episodes is that people don't tend to give Season 1 the time of day. I think that's kind of unfair. Yes, Season 2 is fantastic and a vast improvement in a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean Season 1 wasn't fantastic in its own right. In fact, in rewatching the entire show for this project, I've come to realize that I don't think there's a truly bad episode, Season 1 included. That said, Sense and Insensitivity cuts it close. This is the episode where Luce and King enter a writing competition, but King takes over and becomes ridiculously successful, causing a rift between him and Luce. Definitely a more mundane setup with an unimpressive one-off villain in the publisher, but what really sours this one is King himself. On this rewatch especially, a lot of King's Season 1 antics become a lot harder to watch for me, most likely because I now have the knowledge of how much his character is going to grow from this point. Backpedaling to how arrogant, selfish, and inconsiderate he is in this episode is rough to say the least. But is that really the show's fault? Oh, you made a character with flaws that he overcame over the course of the show. How dare you, F-tier episode. And at the end of the day, even in Season 1, I do find King charming. He's a delusional, cuddly little tyrant. He's just not particularly fun in this episode. Thankfully, whenever the A-plot of an episode is kind of lacking, the B-plot almost always makes up for it. Here, Ida and Lilith are tracking down the Bloom of Eternal Youth and discover that it's actually just some con. It's really just a big excuse for the Clawthorne sisters to bond a bit, and it's very welcome. Doesn't bring this episode up from the bottom spot, but if this is the worst this show has to offer, then I can confidently say that there isn't a single truly bad episode of The Owl House. Number 42, Witches Before Wizards. So the episode we just talked about was something that I think got worse for me on rewatch, but this episode I've always found to be unremarkable. This is the episode immediately after the pilot, and it follows Luce as she becomes frustrated by the Boiling Isles not really playing out like her favorite fantasy stories. So she gets duped into taking a bogus magical wizard quest that ends in catastrophe. This is the one and only time where Luce is shown to be bothered by the way this fantasy world works, and it reads to me as sort of the growing pains of the show. I think a lot of shows have this where one of the early episodes feel designed to sort of ease you into the status quo of the show a bit, and it always ends up being one of the most basic story ideas you can glean from hearing the show's premise. And in this particular instance, it works fine, but I don't know, the Boiling Isles being gross and weird as a bad thing is something I was already over by the end of the pilot. It makes sense to have an episode directly addressing the outlandishness of the setting in this way and what Luce initially thinks of it, but I always found the strangeness of the Boiling Isles to work much better as a fun yet thematically resonant backdrop to the story, and not the central conflict of an episode. Not a bad episode at all, but I guess it's just not what I'm looking for from this show, especially on rewatch. Number 41, Really Small Problems. Oh look, it's the other Season 1 King episode where he makes some really selfish and immature decisions. Luce and King go to the carnival, but when Willow and Gus show up, King feels left out and ends up shrinking everyone down to have Luce to himself. Admittedly, this episode was better than I thought it would be. The way events actually play out, it's easier to empathize with King during the whole thing than you'd expect, and the shrinking incident is much more accidental than I remembered it being. There definitely is still a bit of that same frustration that I had with Sense and Insensitivity, but it's to a substantially smaller degree. The thing that actually breaks this episode and forces it to rank this low is Tibbles. Why is this guy the villain they decided needed to reappear? He was fine in his first appearance, kind of obnoxious but entirely unremarkable, a textbook villain of the week. Why the hell did anyone feel the need to bring him back? Tibbles' presence somehow lowers the stakes of the whole episode because how can you be earnestly intimidated by this guy? He was the villain of the B-plot in his last episode, and he's just kind of annoying here. Replace this guy with anyone else and this episode probably goes up like 3 spots in the ranking. Ida's plot in this episode is okay, a lot of funny moments as she tries and fails to run her scams at the carnival. So, overall, I enjoyed this one more than I thought I would, but Tibbles can die in a fire. Number 40, Hootie's Moving Hassle. Oh look, it's the other Tibbles episode. What are the odds? Surprise, surprise, even in his first appearance, I find Tibbles pathetic and annoying. He just suckers Ida and hexes Hold'em and gets his stand destroyed. An incredibly bland B-plot, especially for this show. Thankfully, the A-plot, you know, the main thing that the episode is actually about, is solid and fun. Luce, Willow, and Gus do a conjuring and accidentally animate the entire Owl House. It's a great early bonding episode for our little Hexide crew, and I enjoy it very much. Love that they take the house for a joyride, they get to stick it to Amity and Basha, there's a good character moment for Willow in particular, Hootie's a riot, it's just a great episode all around. And it's ranked at number 40. Yeah, this show is insanely good. We've pretty much already run out of episodes I have big problems with. Nothing but bangers from here on out. Number 39, Once Upon a Swap. Luce, Ida, and King swap bodies for a day. This is the episode I most often see at the bottom of people's lists, usually with some kind of comment about how it's just filler. First of all, filler is a no-no word around these parts. I will not stand for it. So what if the quote-unquote main plot isn't necessarily progressing? You get to spend time in this fun world with these fun characters. And if you ask me, every little adventure they have contributes to the emotional weight of the big story episodes. So throw all those filler comments into the trash. This episode is a ton of fun. It's effectively split into 3 sub-stories. Ida and King's body gets kidnapped by these grandma demons, King and Luce's body starts an angsty teenage uprising, and Luce and Ida's body gets captured by the Emperor's Coven and interrogated by Lilith. Luce's section is definitely the highlight for me, just getting to see her use magic freely and inadvertently confront Lilith is great. I'd probably give King's section the silver, something about his tyrannical machinations successfully winning over these random teens is very entertaining. Plus, this is our first time getting Basha as a proper antagonistic force, and I found myself enjoying her appearances a lot more on this rewatch. That puts Ida's section last, not for a lack of fun moments. This incredibly creepy cutie pie sanctuary is terrifying in all the right ways. So yeah, solid episode, but at this point that's a given. Number 38, Something Ventured, Someone Framed. So this one's kinda weird. At this point in the story, Luce has been banned from Hexside, so Gus, in a desire to maintain his position as president of the Human Appreciation Club, sneaks Luce into Hexside and gets them both thrown into the detention pit. Meanwhile, Ida's working overtime to get Luce properly enrolled into Hexside. This is possibly my favorite Ida B-plot of the entire season. She recognizes her limitations and how much she can teach Luce and how good it might be for her to learn something from the school system. Ida may have personal beef with schools and covens, but she's also mature enough to realize that Luce needs to come to her own decisions on those things. It's a great testament to how much Luce has already changed Ida even this early in the series. And the fact that Luce is already causing chaos at Hexside just like Ida did in her school days is the cherry on top. But that's just the B-plot. The A-plot is all about Gus being a big ol' liar, and it's just not very compelling. Gus is mostly just a comedic character until very late into Season 2 where he gets some much-deserved attention, but for now episodes centering on him have this weird habit of falling flat for me. I can't even put my finger on what specifically about the plotline doesn't work for me. Maybe that the messaging is just as simple as he shouldn't have lied, or maybe I'm just not on board with the rivalry between Gus and Mytholomule. I don't know, but it does pretty handily lead us into our next entry. Number 37, Through the Looking Glass Ruins. The next major Gus episode, and actually the first Season 2 episode on this ranking. Look, I love Season 1, but you know, Season 2 is Season 2. Gus joins some Glandis students on a trip to find the Galder Stones, powerful magic amplifiers. The entire premise of this episode centers around the idea that illusion magic is looked down upon because it can't actually physically affect anything. It's parlor tricks and theatrics. That's what Gus's in his feels about the whole time, and what the Glandis kids make fun of. I don't think this is a terrible idea, but it does seem odd that this is coming up now of all times. Gus has been an illusionist for as long as we've known him, and now, a bit into Season 2, he's calling that into question? It feels a bit out of character, honestly. Gus exudes confidence and positivity, and there's certainly a performative aspect to that positivity, sure, but this turn still feels like it comes out of nowhere. I think part of the problem is that the inciting incident for these feelings isn't actually shown to us. This episode has a weird habit of telling and not showing for some reason. The cold open tells us that Gus messed something up for Willow, but we don't actually get to see it. That's a really strange choice that sets the tone for the whole episode. Whatever, the episode's still good, the final big illusion to scare off the Glandis kids at the end is great, and Mytholomule's a more welcome presence this time. But for whatever reason, Gus's episodes have consistently been a little lacking. But, much like last time, the Gus A-plot is elevated by the incredible B-plot. This time, Luce and Amity are investigating what we will come to know as the Journal of Philip Wittebane. There's another weird moment where they tell instead of show. Luce says that she did a bunch of trials to get Amity's job back, but we don't get to see them. But it's fine, cause oh shit, bold move, Amity. Glad they actually showed that one. All aboard the Lumity train. Number 36, A Lying Witch and a Warden. Oh hey, it's the pilot. The episode that started it all. So kind of like Witches Before Wizards, I see a bit of a pattern with pilots that always makes them a little odd. After all, they have to establish all the most fundamental parts of the show while also being representative of a standard episode in the process. That's not an easy task, and because of that, most pilots for shows end up feeling very different from any other episode. In the Owl House's case, A Lying Witch and a Warden feels a lot more on the nose than any other episode. We get very clear mission statements that define the core themes of the story, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's definitely a little jarring when the rest of the show doesn't feel nearly as much like a clear-cut message show. The idea that King isn't actually some great king of demons is the big twist of the episode, which is always funny to look back on. Same with Ida's head being chopped off and her being fine. I'm so desensitized to it I forgot that it was kinda shocking the first time. And the ever-important mantra of us weirdos have to stick together got its start right here. All in all, it's still a great introduction to this world and these characters, but it's just that, an introduction. A lot of what makes the Owl House truly fantastic is where all these threads go from here. It's always nice to return to where it all began, but I don't think it'll be controversial to say there are plenty of better episodes on the horizon. Number 35, Keeping Up Appearances. In this episode, Ida's mom appears insisting she has found a cure for Ida's curse. When that cure turns out to be a major scam, all of her failures as a mother come crashing down at once and she apologizes to her daughters. This episode's fine. The premise does kind of make me uncomfortable. Seeing this well-meaning old woman get so mercilessly tricked as she desperately tries to help her daughter, I don't know, it just kind of makes me sad. And admittedly, I don't love the way they treat Ida's curse in this episode. It feels like they're making an allusion to some kind of chronic illness, at least that's the read I get from the way they talk about it, and I just think that comparison falls apart under any scrutiny. We're talking about a magical being equivalent to the Incredible Hulk, a shared consciousness situation with a literal beast. Not that I don't get what they're going for or that it doesn't work within the confines of this specific episode, but it is kinda weird. In any case, the ultimate resolution is still satisfying and there are a lot of great moments in this one, particularly Lilith finally understanding what exactly she's been putting her sister through all these years, Luce getting to learn about Philip for the first time, and King and Lilith bonding over their respective absentee parents. Oh, and of course, Ida's mom completely destroying the scammers with her beast-keeping magic. That scene owns and possibly single-handedly dragged this episode up to the spot that it's in. Number 34, Escape of the Palisman. Luce hurts Owlbird and needs to earn back his trust by completing the Bat Queen's trials. This is a great example of an early episode that establishes some kind of important lore about the Boiling Isles in a fun and interesting way. We've got to learn about Palisman. What's the most fun and interesting way we can center an episode around that? Well, make it about Luce connecting with Owlbird, and let's do it through the Bat Queen and reveal how intrinsically connected to this aspect of the lore she is. The Bat Queen herself being an abandoned palisman of some giant creature, perhaps even a titan, is such a great way to round out this storyline and express the dire state of palisman in this world. It's easy to forget how few palisman we actually see throughout the course of the show. Before Season 2, I think only Ida and Lilith are seen with one, and I guess Principal Bump. So while Ida talks about palisman like they're this intrinsic part of being a witch in this world, it's clear that it's a dying tradition with many palisman either abandoned or, as we'll see later, destroyed. It's such great flavor for the world building and really elevates this episode for me. Unfortunately, this episode is a bit hampered by the B-plot where King takes the Owl Beast for a reckless trip to the playground. Yeah, this is another one of those Season 1 King stories that just kinda frustrates me, but it's the last one, I swear. Number 33, Yesterday's Lie. Oh, people aren't gonna like that I put this one so low. Just hear me out, okay? Yesterday's Lie is the episode where Luce checks in on the human realm. We meet V and get this emotionally tragic reunion between mother and daughter. Overall, a great episode. Quick reminder that I've liked every episode we've talked about, and we have long passed the line that separates good and great episodes. With that in mind, I can't help but rank an episode that takes place entirely in the human realm a little lower. Obviously, there's another big episode that does this, and we'll get to that, but here especially, it's just very mundane compared to any other episode of the show. In addition, we're following V, an effectively brand new character that the show needs to sell us on, which is fine, I do like her, but it's a big shakeup to be thrust into a different world with a different protagonist. The ultimate resolution to the main plotline, that being finding some magic for V to feed on, is really just that Camila comes in and shoos this annoying human guy away. Get it? Shoes. Oh yeah, the main villain is this annoying human guy who I hate watching and never want to see again. So yeah, with all of that, you can kinda see why I find a lot of this episode a bit bland when stacked up to everything else the Owl House has to offer. But of course, I'm leaving out the big finale. Luce and Camila break down as the weight of their imminent separation crushes them emotionally. At this moment, Camila makes Luce promise to stay in the human realm with her when this is all over, and Luce is effectively forced to agree. I hated this the first time I saw it. I could just immediately tell that this would be the source of some incredibly forced drama. Luce is gonna keep it a secret for a while, and everyone's gonna feel betrayed when they tell her, and it's gonna take a village to convince Camila to call off that promise. It just raised so many red flags the first time I watched it. Now that the whole series has played out, it wasn't actually that bad at all. There's maybe one episode bogged down by it, but later on how they handle this promise is actually really compelling and well done. So I guess I freaked out over nothing. But you can see why, right? Even rewatching this moment with the context of the full show, I'm still irked by it. It's just one of those conflicts that wouldn't exist if these characters were able to sit down and have a full conversation about it, you know? Now, does it make sense that this would happen? Yeah. Is it an emotionally impactful moment? Absolutely. Is it well done? Despite my qualms, yeah, I'd say it's well done. Which is why this episode is still great and it's not ranking any lower than this. I imagine anyone else's ranking would put this episode much higher, but I think I've made a fair case for myself here. Feel free to leave your angry comments, that's the magic I feed off of. Number 32, Them's the Breaks, Kid. This is the flashback where we get to see Ida meet Rain. This episode's really cute and fun, though admittedly I would have liked to see a bit more from it. With what little we knew about Ida's school days, I would have expected a flashback episode like this to have a bit more chaos. But the plot of this one forces Ida to follow the rules most of the time. But ultimately, the novelty of the whole thing still totally wins me over. Getting to see younger versions of Ida, Lilith, Rain, Terra, Bump, Odalia, Alador, Darius, that's just inherently cool. I love this moment with the principal that calls back to Ida's plot in Something Ventured, Someone Framed. All of Ida and Rain's interactions are obviously adorable. We get to see Ida's first time trying apple blood, which I didn't know I needed. Plus, we see them using the secret passages we learned about from the detention kids. Just a really fun episode concept. And it ends with us learning that Rain is actually a mole within the Coven Heads working with Darius. Great episode, could have been amazing with a little more to it. Number 31, Separate Tides. This is the Season 2 premiere, and to an extent falls into a bit of that pilot pitfall since it's tasked with establishing the new status quo for the season. Though it's a considerably smaller task than, establishing the entire series. We get a pair of really solid storylines here with both Luce and Lilith trying to prove they aren't burdens on Ida. I really love Lilith's side of this episode as she takes not having her magic anymore a lot harder than Ida does. I guess that's what happens when you're an overachiever and the thing you've overachieved at all your life is ripped away from you. But the bond she forms with Hooty through this endeavor is somehow a match made in heaven. How did this happen? Luce's quest to hunt the Selkie-Damas is also great and gives us our first encounter with the Golden Guard. Love how Ida pulls Luce out of her funk by reminding her of all the great things she's done for Ida's life. So yeah, great episode. Very light complaints if any. We're getting to that point where there are just so many great episodes that even ones I don't really have any problems with are gonna end up ranking low. And we're just now getting to the top 30. Hoo boy. Number 30, I Was a Teenage Abomination. If A Lying Witch and a Warden is the pilot, then I Was a Teenage Abomination is effectively pilot 2. This episode introduces us to the other half of the main cast, one of the primary locations a bunch of episodes are going to center around, and gives us our first glimpse of the Coven system. Despite all of that, this episode doesn't feel out of place or like it's juggling too much. The format is as standard as this show gets, and it serves to very smoothly let us into the other half of this world. After seeing Willow get bullied by Amity, Luce can't help but butt in and offer to be Willow's abomination project. But star student Amity can't have Willow surpass her, so she snitches and chaos ensues. This story really perfectly acquaints us with all the basics regarding these new characters. Willow is friendly but lacks some self-confidence, Amity is cold with this almost frightening need to be the best, Gus is the best wingman you could ask for, and Hexside is... well, it's got its quirks, but it's probably one of the more normal things about this world. All of these things are perfectly conveyed in an entertaining and efficient manner. What more could you ask for? I guess the B-plot could have been better. Ida and King compete to see who the better teacher is. Hilarity ensues. I do love the moment where Ida realizes how into school Luce is getting and wallows in despair. Number 29, Follies at the Coven Day Parade. So this is the first of what I'm gonna call plot-heavy episodes. I've got a batch of them here all in a row, so we may run through them a bit quickly. Basically, these are episodes that mostly exist to advance the plot further without doing much else. If you ask me, ideally, the best episodes will advance the plot in major ways through the use of major character developments and moments. That's what intrinsically makes for great storytelling. The characters and their choices directly influence and advance the story. Characters and plot should come across as one and the same. This batch of episodes we're going to talk about either don't have big character moments, or they're far too understated to sway my opinion. Not that a plot-heavy episode is a terrible thing. On the contrary, sometimes you just gotta hash some plot points out in between major character episodes, and they can be great to watch. But it does lead these episodes down to this more middling part of the ranking. Follies at the Coven Day Parade is sort of the mid-season check-in where we get the biggest update on the villain's plan, find out Rain is apparently brainwashed, and get a stronger sense of the impending Day of Unity. The biggest character stuff comes from Luce and Amity in the immediate aftermath of yesterday's lie. This is the episode that I'd say is a little bogged down by that forced drama I was talking about, but thankfully it's resolved quickly and maturely. Amity really is an awesome girlfriend. Though the connection Luce makes between Kikimora's situation and her own feels so flimsy, I'm honestly surprised they keep harping on it. Best part of the whole thing is King and Hooty's stealthy escape. Love to see it. Number 28, Young Blood Old Souls. This is the season 1 finale and is kind of the epitome of the plot-heavy episode for me. Luce, King, and Lilith go save Ida from petrification. It's certainly satisfying to see the events of the far superior preceding episode resolved, but it doesn't have much in the way of major character growth. I guess you could argue Luce's decision to destroy the portal door is a big character moment, but I think if anything, it's just confirmation of what we already knew. She's impulsive and wants to play the hero and doesn't think things through. It's a great moment, but it's definitely not a growth moment. I'm much more agreeable to the big character moments coming from Lilith. Yeah, choosing to betray the Emperor and share Ida's curse, that feels like an enormous decision she never would have made without the change in her perspective that occurred through the course of the episode. It's a little quick, and not with anyone in our main trio, which kind of feels important for a season finale, but it puts this episode above Follies at the Coven Day Parade, so there you go. Number 27, Elsewhere and Elsewhen. This is the one where Luce and Lilith go back in time to meet Philip Wittebane. I was honestly surprised there weren't any major character moments in this one. I could have sworn there was something. But no, unless you count Luce becoming disillusioned by how much of a jerk Philip is. Still, the novelty of this one shoots it up above the other two. In general, it's kinda nice to have a Luce and Lilith episode. A bit of an oddball pairing, but it's appreciated. Now, what really bumps this episode up is the B-plot with Ida's dad. It's a brief scene that they have together, but you can just feel the weight of Ida's regret and how much it's lifted as her dad finally gets the chance to talk to her again. I only wish we delved into this more, but it goes by so fast. Oh well, still a great episode with quite the wealth of reveals at the end. Number 26, The First Day. A little break from the plot-heavy stuff, we get Luce's first day at Hexside, where she is immediately thrown into detention, defeats a giant monster, and completely reforms the school system. Not bad for a first day. This episode gets a lot of points with me on the back of the ultimate decision to allow students to study different tracks. It's somehow both an incredibly small thing and one of the most impactful decisions in this world. All of Belos' power derives from the Coven system, and this one conscious choice is not only one of the earliest steps in toppling his regime, but it speaks to how inherently experimental and anti-conformity Luce is, perfectly echoing her mentor, as the episode itself points out. Couple that with the detention kids being fun, Viney especially, and a big old multi-track battle against a basilisk, and we've got ourselves a winner. Not the flashiest episode out there, but a surprisingly important one. Oh, and King becomes a teacher in the B-plot. I'm not even upset, this is one of the funnier King B-plots, I really liked it. Number 25, Clouds on the Horizon. Okay, this is the last proper plot-heavy episode and easily my favorite. This one is really the preamble to the Season 2 finale. Much like Youngblood Old Souls, I think the companion episode to this one is much better at incorporating those character moments I want to see, but this one's still solid in its own right. As the cats prepare to stop the draining spell, the kids go to rescue Amity and stop Odalia from sending out more reinforcements for Belos. There are so many great moments from Amity repeatedly telling off her mother, King weirdly vibing with Alador, and of course, the magnum opus, the Lumity Kiss. Hell yeah, baby, they did it! This raised the episode up like 3 spots, no joke. But yeah, like the other plot-heavy episodes, there's not as much character stuff. They saved all that for the finale proper. I guess Alador turning on Odalia is a big character moment, but much like Lilith in Youngblood Old Souls, Alador is not exactly a high priority. But it's fine. This is effectively part 1 of a 2-parter. We'll get to talking about that part 2 much, much later. Number 24, Wing It Like Witches. Luce challenges Basha to a Grudgeby match. So, this episode probably shouldn't be this high up. It's a pretty simple don't push your friends too hard message with a fairly standard Ida and Lilith B-plot. But this episode is infamous to me. If you were in the fandom at the time that this episode dropped, your YouTube was probably filled to the brim with edits of it. This episode will forever live in my head rent-free as the gay panic episode, and I just can't help but love revisiting it every time to watch Amity freak out for 20 minutes. I'm really glad that they didn't just keep dangling this romance in front of us like so many other shows do, just waiting to get them together until the series finale, but at the same time, I kinda miss the gay panic era. Every line out of this girl's mouth is gold. This is both the funniest and most adorable shit I have ever seen put to screen, and I will defend it to my dying breath. So I guess this is my comedy entry for the list. Everyone gets one, you know? The episode that busted your guts so much you just have to rank it highly. And it's not even ranking that high. We're not even halfway through this list yet. This show is way too good. Number 23, Adventures in the Elements. Ida takes Luce on a trip to the Knee to make a connection with the Isles. This episode might actually be the only time Ida properly goes out of her way to teach Luce magic. Obviously, Ida has done so much for Luce outside of teaching her, but it's still wild that this is the case. It's fun to see how, after 12 episodes now, Ida's intuition about how Luce's magic works is completely on point and finally leads to Luce learning her second spell. Of course, there's some conflict along the way. This is the first time that Luce and Amity get to be in an episode together where Amity isn't in any way antagonistic, and it's really nice to see, even if Luce steals Amity's trading wand, angers the wildlife, and puts their families in mortal danger. But hey, it gives them a chance to save the day together. Luce learns to trust her mentor's methods a bit more, Amity earns some faith in her own abilities, Ed and M get to not be terrible, it's all great stuff. Once again, I find myself without any real issues. Even the B-plot here is fun as King animates stuffed animals to form a boot camp. Honestly, if the last big stretch of episodes were all great, Adventures in the Elements might mark the threshold into truly amazing episodes. Number 22, Watching and Dreaming. Okay, so I kinda lied earlier. This should be the last plot-heavy episode we talk about, and it just so happens to be the finale of the entire series. Season 3 was easily the hardest set of episodes to rank for me, not only because they're much longer and just inherently follow a bit of a different format than the rest of the show, but also because it's really easy for me to view all 3 episodes as just one big movie, and I think they're all better when viewed in that context. On their own, each one tends to lack something that the other 2 make up for. In this case, Watching and Dreaming lacks those big character arc culminations and thus ends up in the plot-heavy camp. But it makes up for that in so many other areas. We get our main trio going all out in a final battle against Dragon Bellows, we get the Collector finally learning how mortality works, Ida gets to give Luce one last teaching moment, we meet King's dad, who I always forget is voiced by Aaron Hansen until it jump scares me, we get these amazing epilogue designs, Amity and Ida especially look so good. I love that Ida, King, and Rain snuff Bellows out beneath their feet. I love that we get a taste of the insane games the Collector plays. I really love this episode. But you know, it's the big, flashy finish of the show, and I think I'm more inclined to rank the journey higher than the destination. Number 21, Reaching Out. This is the episode where Amity joins the Bonesborough Brawl in an effort to connect with her father. Possibly the most memorable part of the episode is when Luce confesses that she's been weird all day because it's the anniversary of her father's death, and she's not with her mother this year to do their annual tradition of leaving flowers for him. Amity, the awesome girlfriend that she is, insists on leaving flowers there in the Demon Realm. So, fun fact, the rewatch I did for this project was actually with a couple friends, one of which had never seen the show before and another that had. Both of them had a strong positive reaction to this moment. I think it's good. But I remember just sitting there like, maybe I'm heartless, but this isn't getting much out of me. Don't get me wrong, it's a strong moment, and the episode overall is such a great example of a fun, dramatic story featuring Lumity that is so cool to see. But I don't know, of all the episodes that have the potential to elicit big emotional reactions from me, this one just kinda didn't. So that's why Reaching Out is placed where it is. It's the best one of the episodes that didn't make me scream or cry. Oh, and I like the B-plot where Edric joins the Bad Girl Coven. That was great. Number 20, Escaping Expulsion. This is the episode where we first meet the Blight parents, and what an impression they made. Odalia gets Luce, Willow, and Gus expelled, effectively as a way to punish Amity. So when Luce puts herself on the line to get everyone back into Hexside, Amity finally works up the nerve to stand up to her mother. Just hearing that summary doesn't really do justice to the build-up this episode had. Everything we've ever known about Amity has been so heavily implied to come from the influence of her overbearing parents, people whose presence you can feel just off screen. We only get this one scene in Understanding Willow where we hear their voices, but their statements here inform basically everything about Amity's life. Her desire to be the best, the people she surrounds herself with, her isolation through that secret room in the library, it can all be traced back to the insane pressure her parents put on her. So while this is the first time we meet Odalia and Alador, we already know how much it means for Amity to finally stand up to them, and it is so satisfying. Through the course of this show, we get to see Amity completely transform into a powerful and independent witch, willing to fight for the people she truly cares about, and this episode was one of the most defining culminations of that. Not to mention, I think Amity's actions in this episode are what finally get Luce crushing on her. It's been arguably a one-sided crush up to this point, so it's nice to see that development. So yeah, Escaping Expulsion is a legendary start to our top 20. Oh, and the B-plot of Ida and Lilith learning glyphs is great. Cool to see Ida's impulsiveness and immaturity directly match with Lilith's patience and studiousness in this context. Number 19, Edge of the World. This is the one where Luce, King, and Hooty go to the Society of Titan Trappers under the assumption that King is one of them, only to discover King is actually a Titan himself. This episode breaks my heart. We haven't talked about King in a while, but I love everything about his Season 2 storyline. This particular episode presents King with what he thinks is his long-lost family, and immediately rips it away from him. Not only that, but he also learns that the dad he's been searching for is a deceased primordial being. Sorry bud, you can't play catch with him, but you can live with the constant knowledge that you're walking on his corpse. What an intensely tragic situation. King's initial refusal to leave this group behind, his face when he realizes what they are, how he's tearing up as they leave, and the absolute killer that is his little wave to the Titan as they approach. It's amazing how you can feel how impossible it is for King to properly process any of this right now. And Luce is trying to hold out on breaking the news to him for just a bit, but it can't be done. And that's not even getting into all the implied Collector lore going around. A fantastic step in King's journey, and it's only getting better from here. Number 18, Ida's Requiem. There's a lot going on with this one. First of all, we meet Rain Whispers, which is a super cool addition to the cast, but also we get Darius and Everwolf. Both are great, but we all know Darius is peak. The main plot here is Ida helping out Rain's rebel group to try and put a stop to Belos' plans. She puts her own life on the line for the cause, but once Rain realizes Ida has kids, they call it all off. I love how they approach Ida's struggles with her kids leaving here. Obviously, it was always known that Luce would eventually go back to the human realm, but King potentially going off with whatever real family he might have is a brand new wrinkle. Ida becoming distant and convincing herself that they don't need her anymore is such a natural reaction to the fear that they're gonna leave her. And Rain's advice hits so perfectly because, yeah, of course they still need Ida, and she should do her best to be there for them with whatever time they have left. It's wholesome as hell, poignant, and all while juggling these new characters. Quite the impressive repertoire. The B-plot is Luce and King competing in a race to get an exclusive interview so King can get a message out to his potential dad. It's fine. It's kind of just something for them to be doing so Ida can be reasonably separated from them for most of the episode, but the reveal that King is legally changing his name to King Clawthorn is a great note to end on. Now they're officially family, no strings attached. Number 17, Lost in Language. It's the one, the only, the library episode. Luce, Edric, and Emira sneak into the library late at night, but when they discover Amity's secret room, Luce realizes how uncool Edric and Emira actually are. And who shows up but Amity to totally misread the situation and lead to a big old misadventure where Luce and Amity form the first semblance of any kind of friendship. There are better Amity episodes both before and after this one, but they take such an important step with her character here. This feels like the first time Amity willingly lets her guard down around Luce. Whether that be because of Luce's unfailing ability to worm her way into people's hearts, or just because Amity really wanted that 5th Azora book, who's to say? And Edric and Emira in this episode are our first real glimpse into what Amity's home life is like, again, feeding into what will become that incredible moment in escaping expulsion. Looking back, maybe this episode is ranked a little higher than it should be, but this was one of those season 1 episodes that really made me fall in love with this show. Just this glimpse into how deep they were willing to delve into the character that is Amity Blight was so fascinating to see. A really great subversion of the bully trope that has hooked anyone I have ever shown this show to. This episode marks the moment where they first really let her play more than just a bully, and for that it gets a lot of extra points. Number 16, Hunting Palisman. This is the episode where Luce and Hunter need to work together to rescue the Bat Queen's Palisman from Kikimora. Not only is this an amazing proper introduction for Hunter, one of the standout characters from Season 2, who I haven't addressed at all yet because all his episodes are that highly ranked, but also this is the start of one of the most interesting aspects of Luce's character for me. Up to this point, Luce has been riding on the high of living in an escapist fantasy world and learning to become a witch, but this episode puts front and center how completely aimless Luce actually is. She's jumped into this whole thing because it sounded fun without really understanding what she wants or needs to get out of it. Just becoming a witch is vague and inconsequential. It doesn't really speak to her true desires whatsoever. And it's so interesting to see her have to directly confront this problem if she has any hope of earning her own palisman. It's something that becomes so core to her story that it doesn't fully resolve until the second to last episode of the show. It's the seed of a storyline that's so perfectly built off of her characterization from Season 1 and propels her into being one of my favorite characters. And all the seeds of Hunter's storyline also get planted here. This episode mostly just gives us the rundown of his believed backstory and current situation. We'll talk more about all the dirty little details later. Oh, and we get to see Willow and Gus get Palisman, and the introduction of our goodest boy, Flapjack. Number 15, Thanks to Them. Flapjack, no! So this is the other episode that takes place entirely in the human realm, but unlike yesterday's Lie, this one isn't really hampered by that fact. For starters, we're following characters we're all greatly invested in by this point, with Amity, Willow, Gus, Hunter, and Luce herself. Though it is nice to see V again. Secondly, there's actual magic stuff going on. By the end, everyone has full access to their magical abilities. And of course, the presence of Velos throughout the episode makes this story anything but mundane. So with that out of the way, this episode has two major character highlights for me. First of all, a lot of Luce's problems that have been building throughout Season 2 have finally culminated in the depression arc. From not knowing what she wants out of life, feeling like a burden to everyone, feeling obligated to stay with her mom, it all comes to Luce's destructive reasoning that she has to make herself miserable by staying in the human realm permanently. This is fascinating to watch. Luce is the most bubbly, optimistic person in the cast, and she has just been put through the emotional ringer. I particularly adore the voice work for Luce in this episode, because you can hear her trying to act like her old self, put a smile on for those around her, but you can also hear how forced it is, how she's smiling through pain. It's really incredible stuff from her voice actor, Sarah Nicole Robles. Or Robles. One of the two. None of it resolves by the end of the episode, but I like that they save it for the next one. It really gives us time to feel Luce's pain and negative state of mind for a while. But this episode gives us a much more obvious emotional conclusion with Hunter as he finally stands up to Belos. Once again, I'm sort of hesitant to get into all of the Hunter stuff right now. Kinda want to talk about it more during the Stepping Stone episodes rather than the conclusion, but it's an incredibly satisfying moment all the same, the real emotional linchpin of the episode. Other highlights include seeing all the witches in human clothes, seeing Vi in her own unique human design, Camila's past struggles with life and how they affected her decisions with Luce, a smattering of Belos and Caleb backstory, and the absolutely crushing death of Flapjack, the bird that started Hunter's road to redemption, now a part of him forever. Number 14, O Titan, Where Art Thou? This episode was definitely the surprise favorite of this rewatch for me. I really didn't think anything of it the first go around, but this time something about it really captured me. In this episode, Luce and Ida stage a heist so they can steal back King's favorite toy. Already, this becomes an important episode because it's the last time Luce and Ida go on a proper adventure together before everything goes to shit and they have their final dramatic confrontation. Even if Ida doesn't want to admit it, she is still underestimating Luce and trying desperately to protect her from a conflict she has no hope of stopping. Meanwhile, Luce is desperate to prove herself and fight back, not fully aware of how hopeless the whole thing is. We finally get a fight between these two, even if they are clearly holding back, and it's a great emotionally charged battle. By the end, the appearance of Rain and the cats gives everyone renewed hope and gives Ida one final chance to teach Luce something, how to carve a palisman. It's a great final bout for these two, as well as the perfect calm before the storm. But that's not even the part that truly impressed me. The B-plot of this episode is what's really incredible. King, having just found out he's a Titan, goes on a bit of a soul-searching quest with Steve. All my homies love Steve. Through exploring the island, he comes to make whatever connection he can with his apparent parentage, and it's really lovely to see. I especially like this moment where he lays down and imitates the Titan's position. It speaks volumes without really saying anything. And then of course comes King's ultimate realization that everything he ever wanted is sort of at his doorstep. He really is the tyrant he always wanted to be, as Lilith keeps reminding him, but now it all feels empty. He's grown so far beyond that childish desire, and it takes some choice words from Steve for King to finally settle into that. It's not a very flashy storyline, it's effectively just a montage of King exploring the Isles and a couple great conversations, but with how world-shattering the King episodes were and are gonna be, this quiet inner reflection was sorely needed and works really well. Oh, how far this character has come. Number 13, Understanding Willow. Huh, we haven't really talked about Willow at all, have we? Let's fix that. Willow is a character constantly tortured by a single lie, that she's half a witch. Because she was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to magic, it suddenly gave every jerk on the playground permission to make fun of her, constantly fueling a sense of self-doubt that has lingered in Willow's mind since childhood. And it can all be traced back to her relationship with Amity Blight, her childhood best friend that broke things off because Willow wasn't good enough. But of course, that was a lie too. It was only because Amity couldn't stand up to her parents at the time that all this transpired, but a mistake like that is not so easily undone. Amity didn't just break Willow's heart once, but every day since, as she let Basha and company continue to kick Willow while she's down. Understanding Willow is the episode where all of this frustration comes out. Everything is laid bare because you can only keep something out of mind for so long. So yeah, in this episode, Luce and Amity go into Willow's mind to fix some memories. It's pretty cool, I like it a lot. But seriously, throughout Season 1, both Willow and Amity have been on a path of improvement through their adventures with Luce, so it's only natural that they'd have to confront their past together and start to work something out. I do love that they aren't just buddy-buddy right away after Amity's big apology. There's a bit too much damage there to be undone so easily. But it's a start, and it's great to see how these two repair their friendship through the rest of the series. And it all started right here. The B-plot of this one is entirely comedic. Ida and King compete to see who Gus will interview for his project, but Gus ends up picking Hootie, even though Ida would obviously be the best pick, but whatever. Number 12, Any Sport in a Storm. Guess we're staying on the Willow train. Willow starts a flyer derby team and ends up recruiting Hunter of all people. So, kinda like Zuko in Season 3 of Avatar, Hunter ends up going on an adventure with every one of the Hextide kids, which is pretty cute. He's here to try and recruit for the Emperor's Coven, but through the course of the episode comes to realize how he betrayed his newfound friends and comes to their defense. This is kinda more of a Hunter story than a Willow story, but Willow's definitely still dealing with all her issues in the background, beating herself up when she believes she made a bad call recruiting Hunter, and picking herself back up in the aftermath of the whole thing. Willow and Hunter end up forming a unique relationship to say the least. We'll talk more about it later. On the Hunter side of things, this is his first time earnestly making connections with people and coming across any ideologies that differ from that of Belos, so it's a real big shakeup for the guy. Considering how unapologetically rude and antagonistic he was in his last couple outings, seeing him put his coven duties aside to defend his teammates is a really big step, and Darius' positive reaction always sells the whole thing for me. This episode isn't as much of an emotional gut punch as the past few, but it's such a great development point for both Willow and especially Hunter that I always think of it highly. And you know, it's also just a lot of fun. It's a goofy little sports story, and that's fine. We need some of those in the upper ranks. The B-plot here is Luz and Amity investigating the author of the Good Witch Azura books. This is pretty blatantly just the show making fun of its own fans in a charming way that I enjoy. So much so, I can kinda get by the ultimate twist just being fucking Tibbles running a scam again. I'm pretty sure the writers knew that no one liked Tibbles, so he feels just as underwhelming as he should here. It actually works for this story. Still hate his guts though. Number 11, Labyrinth Runners. So this is Hunter's adventure with Gus, as well as easily the best Gus episode in the series. When Adrian Gray threatens to seal away Gus's illusions, Gus accidentally casts a massive illusion spell across the whole school. The story bounces back and forth a bit between Hunter's stresses having become a runaway from the Emperor's Coven, and Gus's persistent frustrations with his own gullibility. Ultimately, they're both able to help each other quell their anxieties by sharing their stories and doing this handy little breathing exercise. I love how Gus's illusion magic manifests his own anxieties back at him. It's such a clever portrayal of how these intrusive thoughts can come around and bite back at you when you really don't want them to. All the while, we end up having Gus go toe-to-toe with supposedly the most powerful illusionist on the Isles. I kinda hate this guy. I went to film school, so this bit of the director that can't actually give direction reminds me way too much of certain classes that I took. Point being, they did a very good job accurately portraying how insufferable this sort of thing is, and I never want to see this guy on screen again. Meanwhile, in the B-plot, we finally get some proper closure on the Willow and Amity situation. Everyone's friendly with each other now, but Amity doesn't quite understand how inadvertently condescending and overprotective she's being. So Willow gets to prove to her just how powerful she has become, and it's great to watch. A fantastic episode for our entire Hexside crew. Number 10, For the Future. Entering the top 10, we get our final Season 3 episode. That being the second Season 3 episode. Hope that wasn't confusing. This is where all the major character arcs fully culminate, and we get that initial impression of how the Collector has transformed this world. I love how the Collector, at least aesthetically, is very bubbly and colorful and sort of represents that G-rated fantasy idea that the Boiling Isles is the antithesis of. It's a great layer to the horrors this character has brought about. As a force, they are everything the Boiling Isles aren't, and it makes their transformation of the world such a brilliant contrast to what we're used to. You can feel how out of place the Collector's presence is so inherently, especially when you see the reactions of characters who have lived in this world all their lives. But of course, the main attraction here is our return to Hexside and all the brilliant character moments that happen here. Admittedly, before Watching and Dreaming came out, I was irked that this episode seemed to just wrap up the plots of our B-tier villains, Basha and Kikimora, but now that the show has finished, I really appreciate the bit of time dedicated to them, despite how out of left field it can feel. More importantly, it makes for the perfect vehicle for everyone to confront their final demons. King and Ida's arcs are sort of softly completed in the background. King displays his newfound emotional maturity and his willingness to relate to the Collector, and Ida accepts and validates how her kid is growing up. It's a small scene, but works to finish up the stories of these two characters well. Amity's is the most understated, but still stands as a great testament to how far she's come. Despite Basha's begging, Amity is no longer in a place where she's willing to surround herself with people like that, and she doesn't consider the notion for a second. She's matured so far past any desire to stoop to Basha's level again, and it's incredibly commendable. Gus takes a bit of a backseat, but is integral to the Hunter and Willow moments. Willow's bottling up emotions to put on a brave face for everyone, and Hunter, in the wake of Flapjack's death, doesn't really know how to express his feelings to his friends. These two conflicts butt heads in the worst way, where Willow misinterprets Hunter's feelings, and Basha is right there to stoke the flames of Willow's nagging lie that she's half a witch. Only after Hunter is finally able to admit how important to him Willow is, and Gus's friendly reminder that reliable people need someone to rely on too, does Willow finally let her feelings out, and with that regains control of her magic. I love how pointed Willow and Hunter's connection here is. Both have, in the past, doubted themselves and their magic, considered themselves half a witch, and through that shared experience are consistently able to relate to each other and help pick each other up from these feelings. It's a great relationship. Whether it be romantic or not, I couldn't really care less. But of course, the biggest winner here is Luz Noceda herself. After the terrible state she was in last time we saw her, letting herself get duped by Kikimora of all people is such a perfect straw to break the camel's back. All of her frustrations and screw-ups come crashing down, and Camila finally takes the opportunity to comfort her daughter. She explains her actions, apologizes, recognizes Luz for the brilliant witch that she is, and through that Luz comes to realize the only thing she's wanted from the very beginning, to be understood. And with that, her palisman finally hatches into the most adorable little guy you ever did see. There is something so brilliantly simple about the way Luce's arc ends here, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of us just want that same thing, to be understood, but that want can be so difficult to realize or put into words. Perhaps it's a little idealistic that a parent could make this moment happen and understand their child so well, but it makes for such a beautiful resolution. So many of Luce's stresses have come from the need to appease her mother's wishes, so for Camila to verbalize how Luce is perfect as she is, I can think of no better way to end this show. Obviously, we got our big flashy final episode after this, and it was great, but this moment right here between mother and daughter is the true conclusion of the Owl House to me. Number 9, Agony of a Witch. Part 1 of the Season 1 finale, Agony of a Witch is heart-wrenching. Luce takes a field trip to Belos' castle to steal an item that will supposedly heal Ida's curse, but she gets captured by Lilith. When Ida comes to save her, well, I think we all know what happens. This is such a perfect end to Ida's Season 1 storyline. After coming off as this selfish, immature, completely independent witch, she makes the ultimate selfless sacrifice, a self-described fate worse than death, in order to save someone she has come to care about. And it's so satisfying how perfectly set up the whole thing is. I haven't really gotten a chance to talk much about Ida's curse or the Owl Beast, but it's consistently one of the most fascinating parts of the show. We'll get to why in a couple future entries, but just know that the build-up to the Owl Beast taking over in this episode is perfect. And I think we could have all guessed that Lilith was the one to curse her, but I don't think the predictability of the twist really hinders the reveal at all. It's still a crushing blow to the characters in the moment and totally earned. But perhaps the most standout thing in this episode is actually the fight scene. I wouldn't say Owl House is particularly lauded for its action sequences. A lot of them are on the simpler side or prioritize character moments over cool action, which generally I appreciate. But there are a couple instances where the fights are really something to behold, and coincidentally, all those fight scenes are in episodes in the top 10. Not to say there haven't been some cool fights up to this point, the big battle of Watching and Dreaming is certainly a highlight, but it does not compare to how intense and energized this duel between Ida and Lilith is. Lilith made it personal by kidnapping Luce, and both sisters are fighting in full force. I love how Lilith forces Luce into the fray by using her as a human shield, so Ida needs to attack around Luce. I love how intensely Ida fights in the last bout before she loses all her magic. I love the constant banter and trying to get under each other's skin. I love the owl-themed spells, they are so much fun. I don't think this is the best Ida and Lilith fight, but it is absolutely the most emotionally charged and significant. Number 8, King's Tide. From one big finale episode to another, it's Season 2's ending. King's Tide kinda one-ups Agony of a Witch in almost every way. Well, okay, the big fight here isn't as good as the Ida and Lilith duel. Luce's solution to stopping Belos is really clever, but as a fight, I'd say even their battle in Youngblood Old Souls is better. But never mind all that, who the hell is this kid? I don't think the Collector ever truly got better than this moment right here. My entire Discord profile is themed around it. What a perfect first impression. So childish yet so dangerous, the most ominous phrasing possible while still just being a kid who wants to play some games, coupled with the immediate destruction of the world around them as the Hexside kids desperately try to flee. And of course, at the center of it all is King Clawthorn. In freeing the Collector, King might have saved every witch on the Boiling Isles, but it forces him to be separated from Luce, and he makes the sacrificial play to ensure she makes it out safely, just like Ida before him. I love how these two moments echo each other. Both Ida and King thank Luce for all she's done for them before making their final move to get them to safety. And this time around, I noticed how Luce's sacrifice in Watching and Dreaming also perfectly echoes this. She says, "I should have thanked them." That's gotta be a direct reference to both of these moments. I guess King doesn't literally say the words thank you here, but it's implied. And what is there to say about this as the culmination of everything King has learned throughout the season? Obviously, from a lore standpoint, freeing the Collector was always the ultimate conclusion. But from a character standpoint, this is King making a connection with a kid, choosing friendship over antagonism, letting go of the facade of the King of Demons, and effectively letting himself be made powerless. And of course, protecting those he loves as equals and parts of his family rather than just underlings or minions. Not only that, but vocalizing Luce's part in that as his sister. He spent this whole season looking for his real family, and in the most tragic moment possible, he confirms that his real family is right in front of him. Perfect. Chef's kiss. No notes. One final thing, this moment where Rain rips off Ida's arm to protect her from the draining spell? So good! How did they turn Ida dismembering herself into an effective dramatic moment? Number 7, Convention. Alright, coming back to a much lower stakes situation, Convention is the episode where we learn about covens and we get a couple of witches duels, Luce versus Amity and Ida versus Lilith. Let's start with covens. Throughout the show, there are constantly little jabs being made at things like Harry Potter. The choosy hat from the first day and the rusty smidge from Winging It Like Witches immediately come to mind. But the coven system is special. So many fantasy stories have these categorization systems, and they're certainly good fun to engage with. Which Hogwarts house you're in is a staple dinner table conversation. Owl House presents us with a similar system and makes one of the core themes of the entire show how problematic systems like this can be. It's the driving force of the oppressive regime that keeps witches in this world under Belos' control. Eda is special because she forgoes this system entirely. It is a complete upheaval and challenge to every other fantasy system that does shit like this, and it's perfect. What an ingenious way to illustrate the themes of individualism and embracing what makes you weird. I love it to pieces, and this episode gets so many points for properly exploring that idea. It also gets a lot of points for what is possibly my favorite fight in the show, the first bout between Eda and Lilith. Agony of a Witch is much more emotional, but Convention's fight just has a lot of cooler spells being thrown out, and the lower stakes give our combatants a bit more freedom to be themselves. Also, love how it ends, it never fails to make me laugh. Meanwhile, while Luce and Amity's duel was nothing crazy, the aftermath is amazing. We get our first real crack in Amity's facade. She sounds like she's holding back tears as she berates Luce for having made a fool of her. And while she's still undoubtedly cruel, Amity's willingness to break off their oath once Luce shows how hard she's willing to work to be a witch speaks volumes. No friendships were made today, but respect was definitely earned. The perfect stepping stone to Lost in Language and beyond. Number 6, Eclipse Lake. We finally get to Hunter's adventure with Amity, plus King and Eda. Unlike with Willow and Gus, Hunter is still in full antagonist mode in this one, and it works wonders. He seems to have taken up Belos' knack for manipulation as he contorts Amity's insecurities to suit his needs. But of course, it's only because they all come from a place Hunter can intimately relate to, the need to be useful. And poor Amity can't quite shake the old habit of fearing for her parents' approval, so those same feelings and thought patterns get latched onto her newfound relationship with Luce. Of course, it all gets resolved rather sweetly by the end, but it's such a fascinating intersection for these two characters that's really engaging. And of course, it makes their duel all the better. I don't know if the animation budget was just higher for this scene or what, but even though I probably like the convention battle better, Eclipse Lake has the slickest, smoothest, most pleasing to watch fight in the series for sure. Just the way Amity moves her abomination sludge, Hunter's warping around, King's minimal contribution, it all flows together so nicely. Of course, all of that is only half of the episode. The other half is Eda and King getting used to their new powers. Eda in particular is really exciting to watch as she begins to communicate more with the Owl Beast and respect its part in their existence more. It's something I honestly wish the show got to explore a bit more before the end of its run, but I'll take what I can get here in Eclipse Lake. Number 5, Hollow Mind. Luce and Hunter explore the Emperor's mind. There are a handful of episodes where things go terribly wrong for our main characters, but this is the one that hurts the most by far. In learning about Belos' backstory, Hunter is forced to confront the reality of his existence and the horrible manipulation and genocidal plans of the man he called Uncle. I'd like to believe that Hunter wouldn't have been able to get to this point without that initial doubt that any sport in a storm likely placed in him. That seed that screamed the Emperor's Coven wasn't actually as good as he thought. But it doesn't make facing all these horrors head-on any less traumatic. The constant deception, the innocent palisman destroyed, the generations of Grimwalkers slaughtered and remade like they were nothing. I'm still a little salty we never got a full explanation of Grimwalkers, but I do love the non-verbal storytelling there. We get just enough context to piece together what Hunter is, and it's almost creepier that way. Hell, Hunter himself not even getting a full understanding of what he is as to the world-shattering situation he's found himself in. What really sells it is the final scene in the Owl House. Despite everything he's learned, the first words out of his mouth are, "I can never go back." The castle was his home, the coven was all he knew, and that has all been ripped away from him. He has no other friends, there's nowhere for him to go. All he can do is run. I love where Hunter's story goes from here, the realization that he's not really alone, that he can shape the person he wants to be instead of following whatever design Belos had for him. But my sick little mind still points to this as my favorite Hunter moment, that initial admittance that Belos is evil and the horrible panic that came immediately after. Luce's end of this whole thing is a bit weaker, but still hits hard. This horrible person who has ruined the lives of everyone you hold dear? Turns out in your fun little time travel episode, you actually helped him do that. Whoopsie. This is the mistake that'll haunt Luce throughout her upcoming depression arc, and her face at the very end of this episode sells just how much it's already weighing down on her. Easily the most tragic episode of the show, and I love it for that. Number 4, The Intruder. I feel like no one's gonna agree with me here, but The Intruder is such peak Owl House to me. In this episode, Luce and King are locked in with a mysterious creature that has taken Eda, but it turns out to be Eda as the Owl Beast. This is one of those season 1 episodes that so perfectly introduces us to an aspect of this world in the most fun way possible. How do we introduce the Owl Beast? Make it like a horror movie monster that Luce and King have to defeat. It's awesome that something that becomes so integral to this show's lore can be revealed in such a fun way. And I love this as the first proper Luce and King episode. With Ida completely out of the picture, these two are forced to work together for the first time, and it's perfectly done. There's this great line near the start where Luce offhandedly mentions how she just wants to be taken seriously. And she says this to King of all people, a character who by default is never taken seriously. But when he hears that sentiment, he immediately relates and becomes willing to help Luce learn magic. That right there is the moment these two became best friends. It works so well they even brought back the idea for King and Edric in reaching out. But what's even better is later in the episode. Luce and King are cornered and out of options, and in this moment Luce finally takes King seriously, letting him use his demon knowledge to come up with a solution for them. In turn, King encourages Luce to try the light spell Ida taught her, thus taking Luce's foolhardy quest to become a witch seriously. That connection and willingness to hear each other out in the face of their shared struggle is so perfect. And what happens immediately after? The light glyph is revealed. Reminder, after Luce and King shared a strong connection, Luce's first glyph, often described as being the Titan's language, something the Titan has to willingly show you, the Titan who is King's dad and is watching over those who have been kind to him, after Luce was nice to King, only then does the light glyph appear. I don't know how far ahead these fuckers plan this, but it retroactively fits so well that the Titan gives Luce the light glyph after she shows King kindness. And even without that retroactive context, what a perfectly whimsical and charming moment it is for Luce to learn her first glyph. Up to this point, the idea that Luce could learn magic has pretty much been completely shut down, but right here the biggest possible victory has happened. Luce learning magic has suddenly become feasible. How exciting! Yeah, I love this episode. I doubt it's even in the top 20 for most other people, but for me, The Intruder is easily one of the best episodes of this show. Number 3, Enchanting Gromfright. It's Grom. I could end this entry right there if I wanted to. You all get it, right? You all know why this is ranked so highly. I don't need to spell it out for you. The Grom dance has got to be the single best sequence of animation in this show. I guess if you want to call it a fight scene, it's the best fight scene. Even ignoring the lumity of it all, it's just gorgeous, and the music it's paired with is so perfect. If there's one thing that got this show on everyone's radar, it was probably this scene being plastered everywhere. And of course, the official reveal of the crush. Cue Little Miss Perfect. With all that said, this episode has plenty of other merits besides the obvious scene. This is Luce's first real confrontation with the idea that she's betrayed her mother, and the surprise of what the Grom monster transforms into really hits hard. Amity goes through her little arc of facing her own battle and particularly the fear of rejection. King gets a fun little overcoming stage fright story, the Grom outfits are all on point, it's just a great time all around. But yeah, it's Grom. That's why it's ranked so high. It's Grom is good. How many ways do I have to reiterate that it's Grom? Besides, I need a shorter section, this ranking has already taken way too long. Number 2, Echoes of the Past. King takes Luce, Lilith, and Hooty to his castle. While they're there, Ida arrives and is forced to tell King the truth. He's not the king of demons. The delusion that has defined this character since day one has now shattered. Not only does this set King up for the incredible journey he takes for the rest of the season, but in this moment King experiences the ultimate betrayal from all of his closest friends. The voice work from Alex Hirsch in this scene kills me every time. There is nothing more crushing than King in his panic assuming that, just like always, everyone's making fun of him again. Ouch. Incredible how one sentence can speak volumes about this character's experience. What was that one desire from the Intruder again? To be taken seriously. And this is the crushing confirmation that everyone's just been playing pretend to appease him. In other words, no one ever took him seriously for a second. And it rightfully breaks him. When Luce goes to try and console him, you can feel that betrayal, the foundation of the friendship they forged starting to crack. But even though King has every right to be upset, I wouldn't necessarily put Ida or Luce at fault here. They were just people doing what they thought was best, the equivalent of acting like Santa's real for a kid. At the end of the day, they still support King all the way, proving their bond is greater than this one mistake. This whole episode never fails to get me emotional. I still tear up listening to that moment right before King runs away. It makes every Season 1 King episode totally worth it, even Sense and Insensitivity. It all builds up King's narrative so it could all come crashing down here. What a perfect payoff. Between this and Hollow Mind, I'm starting to think I prefer my characters tortured and broken. So perhaps we should end this off on a more optimistic note. Number 1, Knock Knock Knockin' on Hooty's Door. Hooty, you goddamn maniac. How did you do it? How did you make the best episode of The Owl House? I still can't believe this thing is only 22 minutes long. How do they pack 3 of the most perfect little stories into such a strict time limit? And all through friggin' Hooty. Just for fun, let's go from my least favorite of the 3 stories to my favorite. First off, Hooty tries to help King figure out what kind of demon he is. This one's great for the demon lore alone. I didn't think I needed Hooty teaching me about the different categorizations of demons, but apparently I did. Couple that with a bunch of hilarious moments and the nail in the coffin, King gets actually mad when Hooty tries to pass this whole thing off as a just love yourself moment, pushing King to let out all his frustrations in the form of a newly discovered power. Definitely the tamest of the 3 sections, but still an absolute blast that I'm always happy to revisit. My next favorite section, Hooty tries to get Luz to ask Amity out. I know, this one's not first place. I've been gushing about how good the Lumity stuff is for the whole ranking. Believe me, I'm just as surprised as you are, but we'll get to that. For now, this section is amazing. Luz and Amity are, understandably, a little awkward about the whole prospect, so obviously they just need Hooty to force them through the tunnel of love. That'll fix it. While this is the source of unprecedented secondhand embarrassment, I can't help but find this whole section to be hilarious. And poor Amity's face as Luz destroys everything. Ugh, this poor girl doesn't deserve this. Of course, this leaks into the ending of the episode where, after a whole season and 8 episodes of us asking whether or not Disney will actually let it happen, Luz and Amity finally ask each other out. I honestly can't imagine a better way for it to happen. Who needs a perfect proposal? Sometimes you just gotta be in the hot seat and let your emotions be heard. Hooty really says it best. They're adorable and deserve all the happiness. And then there's my surprise favorite segment. Hooty feeds Eda sleeping nettles, causing her to lucid dream alongside the Owl Beast. This is nuts because Eda is only barely my 5th favorite character. My top 4 in no particular order are Luz, King, Amity, and Hunter. So you'd think I'd prefer the King and Lumity segments. But there's something so ethereal and striking about Eda's dream sequence. We get a tour of all of Eda's most harrowing moments where the Owl Beast took over, namely the times she attacked her father and split up with Rain, perfectly setting the tone of what Eda's relationship with the Owl Beast has been up to this point. But then we see a window into the Owl Beast's past, brutally and unfairly captured and forced into a curse that just happened to find its way to Eda. 2 souls forever tethered together against their wills. For the first time, Eda expresses some compassion towards the creature she felt ruined her life. After all, it's the reason she can't do magic right now. But through an expression of understanding, some kindness, and agreement to treat them better, Eda gets to taste some semblance of magical power again through her harpy form. What she thought was the ultimate enemy was the companion she needed all along. Couple that with a collector tease I really wish was paid off in some way, but that's fine, and you get one of my favorite sequences in the whole show. But it's funny, I think Echoes of the Past has my single favorite scene with that King breakdown, but this episode masterfully stitches together such an amazing set of stories that combined manage to outrank it. And what makes these so much greater than the sum of their parts? Unironically, it's Hooty. He's the connective tissue that makes this episode work so well. Not only does he give every character the push to actually experience their respective tales, but he's going through an arc in the background the whole time. All throughout Season 1, this poor bird is constantly undermined and written off as a nuisance, nothing more than the annoying bodyguard of the house. But through his friendship with Lilith, Hooty has gained some confidence and pushes himself to be of use to his friends, and it's really sweet of him. Of course, it's Hooty, so his methods are questionable at best, but you can't argue with the results. In one foul swoop, Hooty has made himself integral to the cast. I don't blame them for never doing another Hooty episode because they just perfected it the first time. There was never going to be any topping this. It can only be described as the best episode of The Owl House. Woo! That took a lot out of me. Thanks for watching all of that. If you enjoyed, like, comment, and subscribe. I intend to do this same thing for the DuckTales reboot eventually, so definitely stick around if you want to see that. It probably won't happen for a while, but it'll happen. I promise. See y'all next time for a considerably smaller project. Bye!